You're absolutely right. It is a big deal. And of course, the part of the world that's most quote unquote free of the dollar is probably Europe. Europe has the single currency, the euro. Well, if you go back to the 1960s, before our fixed exchange rate system broke up in the early 70s, they were already thinking about going to something different. They were starting to price in the German Deutschmark. They were starting to have loans in the German Deutschmark. They were laying the groundwork for what, eventually happened. And China's doing the same thing. It's pricing, it's creating very innovative financial systems and financial structures to make payments. They're laying the groundwork to be able to have more freedom from the dollar. And that's been going on for quite a while. And again, accelerated by the sanctions against Russia, where they see the handwriting on the wall.
Yeah, so it seems like the dollar hegemony is seeming to be splintered now. And so now you're going to have more transactions done in the renminbi, the yuan. You're going to have more transactions done in the euro. And you're going to have more transactions done in Bitcoin. I mean, even if Bitcoin were regulated to the extent that there was reporting requirements, that just means there's, basically tax reporting requirements. Doesn't mean it can't be used. And it has the advantage of not being controlled in the size of the amount of Bitcoin that we have, with the dollar. We can print dollar. We can't print Bitcoin.
But Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, they're the underground economy. But that's big. My book gives estimates of 20% of global GDP worldwide. It's pretty big in the advanced countries, actually. It's 15%, and in places like Italy, 30%. And Bitcoin can be used in those. And so that's a $25 trillion economy. So that gives it real value. I don't think Bitcoin's going to conquer the major countries. They have so much incentive to restrict it. If it starts replacing the dollar, it creates a lot of problems.
Well, we've already seen this in China, right? They already restrict it. And so, it does make sense. They don't really, it's not in their interest for it to go completely mainstream, which I think is the point here. So what are some things that you think that business owners can do? And what should we as business owners be looking at in order to kind of prepare for this? Because it's clearly declining. Clearly, I mean, not just the exchange rate of the dollar, which means hurry up and take that European vacation, because that's going to cost more. But what can we do from a business standpoint, do you think, or do we need to do to counterbalance that change in the use of the dollar?
Well, you're much more expert than I am, but I would say things like it's going to be a more volatile period. It's going to be more like the 70s than it was like the 2010s. That's what we're facing. And that's tough when things are more volatile, but I would just get used to it. It's going to be part of things. I say that I would not count on interest rates collapsing back to zero. That's a controversy. That's my opinion, but I have quite a bit of conviction that longer term interest rates right now, the 10-year rates around, as we speak this moment, the 10-year rates around 4.5 and the 30-year rates around 5. I expect those to drift up another percent in the next couple of years because there's debts pouring up. There's militarization going on all over the world. AI is sucking up a lot of investment. The fracturing of trade. So if you're closing yourself off to trade, that's what Trump wants to do. He wants to have better trade balance. That means less money coming into the country to pay for that trade. That's been keeping our interest rates down. So there are a number of things pushing up interest rates. And I mean, that's probably almost no one listening wants to hear that. And I'm sorry, but plan for it. Like if you're thinking of taking a 2-year loan or a 10-year loan, I would take the 10-year loan right now. Maybe I'm wrong. I understand they're very volatile. Many people with great expertise on this. But I mean, I expect to see this upward drift. And I would think about protecting yourself against how to protect yourself against inflation. I expect that all this volatility, this budget unsustainability, which is magnified by the decline in the dollar, which raises our interest rates, which makes it even harder to balance our budget. I think it's not going to end well. I think we're going to end up with a burst of inflation, not because Trump is not managing things well, not because of Biden or whoever's next, because the American people are not prepared to accept anything until we have a crisis. Not any politician who tries to do others. For example, we haven't really raised the retirement age compared to other countries. We're France. We think we're France. And I don't know who France thinks they are. They're in a lot of trouble. Every other country, even Denmark.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. Denmark went to 70.
Denmark went to 70.
Why don't we peg our retirement to our life expectancy? I mean, that makes no sense to me. Why we would somehow get to have more life expectancy and the same amount of money for longer periods of time without higher birth rates. I mean, it's a Ponzi scheme to begin with, by definition, and so that does seem odd to me as well. But it sounds to me like what I'm hearing you say is we've got to really reprice our expectations. We may need to reprice our assets. We may need to, because if people are thinking as interest rates are coming down, because we always need our earnings rate to be higher than our interest rate. Okay. Mm-hmm. If our earnings rate is lower than our interest rate, we're in trouble. We cannot sustain that for very long. So it makes sense to me what you're saying, because if your inflation rate is 3%, your interest rate has to be higher than your inflation rate by definition. And then your earnings rate needs to be higher than your interest rate. So it's this repricing. We have to think, okay, what are we going to do so that we can reprice, whether it's our goods, whether it's our real estate, whether it's our business assets, whatever that is. But we have to keep this whole pricing mechanism in mind. Understanding how this is working is going to allow us to kind of that macro thought process you're talking about, then we can apply it into our micro type of a business, it sounds like to me.